For section number 3, where you're really tying what you see as issues in Mariana's case to our course content, you have 3 questions to answer. The first question is, how is Mariana receiving FAPE, a free and appropriate public education? How is Mariana not receiving FAPE? And who is responsible? So let's deal with those 3 separately. First of all, I'd like you to take the first 2 questions. How is she receiving FAPE? And how is she not receiving FAPE? And I would like you to choose just one example. Don't try to describe it overall. Choose just one example of how she is receiving FAPE in her current situation and how she is not receiving FAPE in her current situation. Describe your example and have one citation to a very specific either resource or part of the law, Andrew or Rowley, or the two standards that we now need to always consider. I would steer you away from anything procedural and have you look deeply into substantive and whether or not things are appropriate for those 2. But again, one example of how she's receiving FAPE tied to a citation and a specific part to either the law or one of your resources. And 2, an example of how she's not receiving FAPE, a specific example tied to one citation or resource or the specific part of the law. For that third part about who's responsible, I'd like you to think, and again, tie this into what we talked about a little bit with our last paragraph with the model. We've got a home district school and we've got a attending school. Read the case study carefully and the staff's responses during the meeting where everybody's together, where Mariana's parents asked them to all come together and talk about her lack of progress. Again, there aren't going to be any wrong answers here, but you have to make sure you've tied it back to what you read in the case study and think about it pretty deeply with the evidence from our resources. Remember, Rowley and Andrew court cases define IDEA and FAPE together. They're not separate. One was not wrong and one was not right. They define them together. And it's the Supreme Court of our entire nation has decided that these kinds of things need to be decided on a case-by-case basis. They acknowledge that there's very subjective definitions in the very law. And we need to have appropriate evidence as special education teachers in order to prove FAPE. And I'm asking you to do that the same here, in that I want you to have the evidence either from the case or from our resources to kind of prove what you're saying about how she is or is not receiving FAPE. So that last third part's a little more nebulous, a little more subjective, but split that into 3 parts, and I think you'll do a great job.